Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to another brand new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Tonight, we have writer extraordinaire Paul Kupperberg on. We're going to be talking about his career at DC Comics. We'll be talking about the Kickstarter for his brand new book. And we'll take your calls and questions as well. All that and more, so stand by. We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. And if you are driving around the greater St. Louis area tonight listening to us on the Big 550 KTRS, hello to all of you listeners out there. Thank you for tuning in. If you're streaming us on YouTube and Facebook, hello to all of you who are watching the video. Thank you for finding us there. And as always, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form, we appreciate you finding us on whatever platform you get your podcast. Hopefully you've subscribed by this point and left us a nice 5-star review. We barreled past the 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. We're approaching the 1,400 mark. So it's like a snowball rolling downhill, ready for disaster, crushing tourists and slalomists along the way. We're very excited. So thank you to all of you who have subscribed on YouTube. And most of you, I think, subscribed just because I announced last week that I'm going to have this guest on. He's been on the show before. We've seen him at Terrific Con, very talented writer. And now he's got a brand new Kickstarter out for his newest book because he can't stop writing. We've got Paul Kupperberg on. How are you?
I'm good. I can't stop writing, but otherwise I'm fine.
Well, good. I'm glad you can't stop writing. It seems like every time I turn around, you're doing a Kickstarter. How many ideas do you have just bubbling in the back of your brain? And will Kickstarter, are they putting like a limit on you? Like, hey, slow down?
No, as a matter of fact, this time, usually when you put up a new campaign, you get this message, it could take up to 8 days to clear you. So I, gave it plenty of time and I put all the information up, and I clicked submit, and within seconds it came back, you're approved.
Oh, wow.
So I guess I'm good.
Okay. They know you now. It's like Norm at Cheers.
Yeah. Paul. So cool.
So,
but yeah.
So you've got these other books you've come out with where you're conversing with different comic book writers, creators, and artists. This one, it looks like it's focused strictly on your 40-plus year career in the business. Is this after talking to so many people, you realize they're all boring? Let's do more about me. Is this kind of what came about?
Well, there was a distinct lack of me in the other one, so I did need to get back to me.
Right.
But no, it was just I over the years, I'm on podcasts, I'm at conventions, I write a column for 13thdimension.com. I'm always, I'm always with the anecdotes, and people are always saying you should write a book. And so I did.
Did they not know you've written other books?
No, well, it looks, it's my entire life with comics. And comics have been with me my entire life. I don't remember a time when there weren't comic books around me. I had a brother who was a couple of years older, and my uncle who was just 10 years older than me lived next door. So, the comic books were always around in the late 50s, early 60s. So, it starts back there. And then I was heavily involved in collecting and fandom and in the late 60s and early 70s and mid 70s, and broke into the business in 75. So, lots of stories.
Do you have a lot of the comics from when you were growing up, getting them wherever you got them from locally, or are you kind of one of those people who I sold some collection, I bought other pieces back, and I sold them again? Did you kind of fluctuate, or a lot of the comics you have still original ones you bought originally?
Oh no! I have spent the last 15 years or so lightening my load. Once I started, when I got divorced in 2009, I was packing up the house after 20 years, and there was just a lot of stuff, and I realized most of it I'm never going to look at again. I mean, I had the satisfaction of having it on the shelf, and there was something about having this. My office was a converted one-car garage, and we had bookshelves built along both walls, so a lot of shelf space, and it was just jam-packed. And I loved that. I just loved having the stuff until I had to start carrying it. And then suddenly I wasn't so fond of it.
Right.
I donated a lot of stuff to libraries, and I started putting stuff on eBay, and then I inherited my brother's stuff when he'd passed. And so I had to sell that. 2,500 pounds of stuff was delivered to my house, to my apartment. So I've been getting rid of lots and lots of stuff.
Not the Jerry Lewis comics, though, right? You've kept the Jerry Lewis comics.
I never really had that many of them.
Oh, okay.
See, the beauty these days is that no matter what you want to read, it's available. It's either it's in a reprint, or I can find it online. So I really don't need the physical items anymore. It's in fact, I've been going through papers, short boxes full of papers and scripts and proposals and Lord knows what else that I've accumulated over the years. And I've been scanning as much as I can, getting rid of the worthless stuff. And also I'm going to be donating all those papers to somewhere soon, along with my comics.
Wow.
Because again, I talked to my son. He doesn't want to have. He would like to have it, but he doesn't. He thinks it would be better off going to a collection somewhere.
Yeah. And for those of you who just joining us in the chat, hello to Chance with the Nostalgic Pod Blast out of Atlanta. Hello, Chance. He was just doing a comic book unboxing earlier today. I got to watch him take some comics out. He's got this huge collection he just got recently, and he was showing off some of the stuff. It's nice to see Chance in the chats. I couldn't get that one out. And hello to Shannon. Shannon's also listening right now from the St. Louis area. So hello to you. Thank you both for tuning in on the chats tonight. I know I had Keith Giffen on the show, and I asked him, I said, so, I know that DC Comics and everyone sends you comps and everything like that. Do you have comics? And he said, hell no. You wouldn't know I worked in comics. Evidently, he did not keep anything. He just gave it away or pitched it, evidently. I might have one short box of comics in my house total. But I was like, that's hard to believe that, he loves comics, but he did not keep any of his comics.
Yeah. Well, if there's anybody more curmudgeonly and skeptical than me, it would have been Keith.
Right.
Yeah. I get it. And I understand it. I sometimes look at, people display their collections or their original art, and there's, it's like, wow, that's cool stuff. I'd like to have that. But, I get over it.
Again in the chats, I need to Chance and chats. Chance, we're gonna have to change your name. I'm gonna start calling. I'll start calling it the Conversation. So Chance in the Conversation. See, that'll help me. It says Obnoxio the Clown was hilarious. That was Paul's creation, I think. You did Obnoxio?
I did not. My brother did. Alan did.
Alan, okay. All right.
Yeah. He did that for Crazy Magazine. I also I wrote for Crazy Magazine. I did movie parodies for years for Larry Hama when he was editor.
Yeah, Larry's another, from what I've heard, can be curmudgeonly. I've met him on his good days, I guess, but I've heard he can be curmudgeonly. Larry's
a sweetheart, and he can disassemble and reassemble a pistol in seconds. So,
So just don't cross him when he's curmudgeonly. That's all.
Don't prod him. That's all.
But this book, and I want to get back to the podcast. My brain is not functioning. I want to get back to the Kickstarter. It's panel by panel. My Comic Book Life by Paul Kupperberg. We're going to put Kickstarter. Did you know you're on Kickstarter, Paul? Whatever that might be.
Oh, I know. I didn't know you knew.
We're starting an OnlyFans, and Paul's on Kickstarter. But we'll put a link to the Kickstarter in the comments so that those of you who are listening after the fact in the podcast form, just scroll down to the bottom of the page, and you can get one of these perks that Paul has. A lot of perks, too, you've got listed for unpublished scripts, as well as PDF versions for those of you who want it. Like Paul, you want to streamline your collection. You don't want the physical copies. You can get PDFs of the book itself. Original goal of $2,500. You've already blown past that. You're on your way to doubling that. So we'd like to see a nice even $5,000 at least if we can get that out. It's got 11 days to go, so that's a perfectly attainable goal. Are you with doing as many of these as you do? You mentioned how quickly we're verified. Do you find the Kickstarter process is almost easy? It's like getting on a bike now. It's just like, boom, you have it up and you're going and you're full. Cause I don't think you've missed a single Kickstarter. You've fully funded all the ones you've undertaken.
I missed one a while back.
Oh.
But yeah, it's a pain in the neck. It's really, it's a lot of work. Even, and I'm keeping this one fairly low key because I feel guilty going back after having done one earlier this year. So, it's still a lot of work. You have to keep promoting it. You have to keep your mind on it. And you do. It's kind of like, you say, I'm just going to let it go and I'm going to, but inevitably there, you're checking the Kickstarter page to see where you're at. And, let's see you scroll down, see who's contributed. Why that, so but it is a lot of work preparing it. Yeah.
Is it worth the work versus trying to have someone else publish it for you? Is it worth that, though? Because I know a lot of times people don't like dealing with publishers. This way, you've got full creative control over whatever it is you're creating. I know Jimmy Palmiotti is going mostly Kickstarters for all of his stuff that he's doing. So do you find it still, while it's a lot more hassle, is that hassle worth it, not having to go through a publisher for anything?
Honestly, the publishers of what I've been doing, they're on the small side, so I'm better off doing it myself. I mean, I would love to have somebody else do the work, but it's just it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's part of the cost of doing business these days. I come from the olden days of pencil and paper and publishing. I just posted a photo stat of an old logo on Facebook, and it's like, what's a photo stat, Grandpa? So I come from that world, of presses and hands-on,
Sure.
pre-digital. So, it's a lot. That was a lot of work.
Absolutely.
I think about like the color separation process in those days. That it used to, I was involved on the low tech end of it even back then. On some things, I helped friends on things like Foom magazine and whatever, do some color separations, and that was done literally with an X-Acto knife and this stuff called Rubylith, which was an opaque stick-on stuff that you would cut out the shape. You'd put it on the thing to be separated, and you'd cut out the shape, and depending on how many layers of Rubylith you applied, that would be, that would give you the color variant, color grade. Yeah. It was,
So, I feel like, I don't know if this is maybe a rudimentary question, but as a pedestrian who doesn't know any better, I feel like technology has obviously changed the way people do comic books. I just had lunch with Rick Burchett this week, and he was talking about doing things on the computer now. You don't have to even, like all the work that you just mentioned, trying to color something. He can just ink on an iPad and up it goes. I feel like writing, though, the process, while we've got, now we're emailing stuff over, we're sending back and forth scripts at the blink of an eye. Writing is still writing. Am I wrong?
Drawing is still drawing. Writing is still writing. Yeah. As far as that part of the job goes, the computer is just a tool. There are I don't know if I don't know how Rick works. A lot of people start on the page, with sketches, and then they scan that in and they work off of that on the computer. But as far as it makes you a better writer because I spent many years working on a typewriter. I wrote 2 novels on a typewriter, which is horrendous because you make a mistake and you go, yeah, to heck with it. It's not worth going back to fix it, because you have to retype the entire page or cut and paste, which I hate. I hated you would cut, you'd literally cut the page up and then Scotch tape it together. And I always hated that. It's like, it was so sloppy, but it was just, but now, you can fuss with it up until the very last second and it's,
yeah.
And somebody has to pry it out of your hands.
We have My Flock is in the chats. Hello, My Flock. Thank you for joining us tonight as well. If any of you have a question, if you're listening, if you're not in the chats, if maybe you're just listening on air, you can text us on the KTRS text lines at 84126. I don't know what this text means. We have a text from someone in the 314 area code that says, the food is on the front porch. I love you. Whoever you are who sent the text, I love you too. KTRS doesn't have a front porch, but we'll check the door during the commercial break. Maybe someone dropped us off some food for us. That'd be lovely. Whoever that is in the 314 area code who texted us. And if anyone else in the chats wants to bring us food, we are at 638 Westport Plaza. Feel free to drop something off, and Paul can watch us eat over the video link. It's always, like I said, I don't know if some of the chats, the way they come in from the listeners, it's a text line. So I'm not sure if maybe someone thinks they're texting someone else and they're actually texting a radio station. But who knows? There might be food at the front door. We'll check during commercial break.
No, they think you're DoorDash. It's okay.
You never know. I wanted to ask you too about because I was looking over your Kickstarter and all these great bits of art you've got in there. I mean, you've worked on so many titles. Checkmate, which I've got that picture that I posted of you and me. I had you sign my Checkmate poster, but there's that one that you posted I forgot all about. You've got the house ad, which I love in-house ads that Marvel and DC used to do. I wish they'd bring those back. One of many things I could talk about. I wish comic books would.
I wish comic books would have a personality again. Sure, that would be nice. Yeah,
you heard it here first, folks. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. By the way, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole. But it's for Arian, Lord of Atlantis. It's written by Paul Kupperberg, one of DC's most versatile writers. The DC explosion continues with Comicdom's newest epic story. That wasn't your first writing gig, though, was it?
Oh no. That was I don't know, 6 or 7 years into it. Yeah.
I thought so, but
that's how I got to be so versatile.
Writing for all these, I mean, and again, when you look at all the titles you worked on, there's a lot of versatility there. It's some people I feel like get, I don't want to say typecast, but when you think of Larry Hama, great as he is, I love Wolverine, I love Nth Man, I always think of G.I. Joe. Stuff that other people have written. John Byrne, as much as he can art and write, I always think of X-Men. John Byrne, and same with Chris Claremont, I think of New Mutants. But I don't feel like if someone asks me a title, I have to say, well, which one would I go? Because there's so many you've worked on. Doom Patrol, which I loved that opening run of Doom Patrol from the 80s. Do you find that most people know you from a certain thing, or is it just like, oh yeah, you wrote this?
Yeah, it seems to be, different people have different entry points into my career. There are people who remember me from the first Doom Patrol in 77, or the one in the mid 80s, or from Checkmate, or from later on than that, Life with Archie, or just know me from my editorial career at DC. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's all it's. I really did do it. I learned early on that you never know what you're going to be handed to write. So you might as well just say, it's like an actor goes in for a part and they go, can you ride a horse? Can I ride a horse? And then you go out and you learn how to ride a horse. So early on, in 76, I was hired to work in the public relations department at DC as an assistant. And all of a sudden I'm being handed, publicity kind of writing to work on. Daily Planet pages and press releases and And I would write, I was writing publishorials. One of the first things I was given to write, if I remember correctly, was Mort Weisinger's obituary for the.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah, yeah. Or as Julie Schwartz said to me, he said, "You know what's on Mort's gravestone?" Why, no, Julie. What? It says, "Here lies Mort Weisinger," and lies and lies and lies, and that was his best friend.
Well, if you got, my Facebook algorithm has sent me down a path where now all I'm getting in my Facebook feed are Don Rickles videos. So
Oh, nice.
I think some of the things like that, obviously, when it's said in jest, we know, it's all in good fun. But I don't think I've heard that story before. So that was Julie Schwartz.
Yeah, yeah.
Rick was just talking about him, how he, just such a, when you think of people in comic books, Julie Schwartz is one of those people who really kind of did a lot for DC, like up on the higher levels. I mean, just.
Excuse me. Greatest editor ever in comics.
Really? You'd put him that.
Yeah.
A lot of editors, I always think of Denny O'Neil, too, as another really great editor.
Denny was a great editor.
Yeah.
But what did Denny create? What did Denny create? Julie created the Silver Age.
Yeah.
Julie gave us the Barry Allen Flash, which kickstarted, no pun intended, the return of the second superhero age at DC. He was the guy who he created the multiverse, and that happened on his watch and on my birthday.
Yeah.
So, which was a pivotal moment in my life. As a 10-year-old, I read The Flash of Two Worlds, which was published in 1961, but I didn't read it till it was reprinted in an annual in 1965. And the event took place on my birthday, according to the newspaper. In the story, it was June 14th. And I was like, it made me, that's the moment that I turned into a hardcore fan. I had to find out what was going on. But that was under Julie, when they needed somebody to fix Batman.
Yes.
It was Julie in 1964 or 5, when they needed someone to, take over Superman. When Mort left, it was Julie. So he contributed a lot. He was a story man. He was, he had been an agent in the science fiction field in the 1930s, before he got into comics. And, he represented everybody from Ray Bradbury to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He sold Ray Bradbury's first stories.
Wow.
He met Ray as a kid. Ray was selling newspapers in LA, and they met at the World Science Fiction Convention when Julie went out for that. And, Julie said, yeah, he kept badgering me until I finally looked at his stuff. And, but just, having worked with him as much as I did, even though I worked with him late in his career, in his kind of like, well, I can kind of sit back and just relax now phase of Superman. It was still amazing what I learned from him, just, as far as story and character and pacing goes, something as simple and stupid as I had Superman say to the villain, "I'm afraid you've got the wrong idea," and Julie just changed that. And he says, "Superman's never afraid." Okay.
Huh.
Very, very subtle and even silly in a way, but still, and after I wrote my first Superman story from him, he said, "You never tell them that the reader that Clark Kent is Superman." I said, "I thought everybody knew that." And he said, "You'd think, but this might be somebody's first Superman story."
That's true.
All right.
I'm not sure if you're a Doctor Who fan or not, Paul, but there's a great episode they do the Christmas specials, and Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, is in this little kid's bedroom, and he's flipping through a Superman comic, and it was from the 80s, and he goes, "Hey, look at this." And he holds up the picture. It says, "Clark Kent is Superman." And the kid's like, "Yeah, everyone knows that because Peter Capaldi drew little spectacles on Superman. See, it's the same guy." The kid goes, "Everybody knows that." And 12th Doctor is very upset. He goes, "Well, Lois Lane doesn't know it, and she's a reporter." But I never thought about the fact that someone who's just coming, because that seems like, Bruce Wayne's parents were killed. Clark Kent is Superman. That never occurred to me that people would not know that.
It is very odd to me. When I was little, again, I had, the comic books were all around me, lived in an apartment building in Brooklyn. And in the next apartment building over, like I said, lived my uncle, but also my aunt and her family lived there with my cousins who were around the same age as myself and my older brother, and they never looked at comic books.
Huh.
Alan and I went into the, comic books. Lewis became a chef, whereas on the other side, my cousins, one became a prominent pediatric physician in Boston, and the other a prominent dentist and inventor. So,
Wow.
But when I remember I was 10, 11 years old, and I was having a sleepover at they moved out to Rockaway by then. And I was having a sleepover at their place, and we were talking about something, and I said something about Lex Luthor, and they had no idea who Lex Luthor was.
Really?
And I couldn't imagine that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm a comic book person, so that's something I've known since an early age. So yeah, you would kind of think that everyone would know that, but obviously not the case.
No.
Shannon in the chats wants to ask Paul your fondest memory about your work.
It's hard to say. I mean, the work itself is kind of tedious,
Right.
But I think I don't know why but when I got the gig to do the Life with Archie series, that was just a really great moment. I don't know why. I like the characters. I hadn't really done much work on them other than a handful of short stories. But, it just kind of, the idea that was being presented to me was very exciting. And I thought it could be something really good. And, I think it turned out to be some of the best sustained writing of my career. So, but yeah, I think it might have to be that.
And if I thank you, Shannon, for the question. If any of you have a question, again, I'm trying to monitor the chats as well as KTRS's text lines for any updates on our food or anything else that might have come through. We're talking with Paul Kupperberg. You okay to stick with us through a commercial break?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. We're going to take a quick break. Again, if you have any chats or questions, you can send them to the text line at 84126, or you can just drop it right there in the chats if you're streaming us on the website. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio on the Big 550 KTRS. Please stand by.
H-I-T-S-T-I-A Something and an amplifier too, but you don't need drums to make these sounds. It's true. Hit this. Hit this. Play 'em in the air. You can play 'em anywhere. That drives you crazy and you're about my tune. Hit this. One that only hits this.
Meet the Pretenders, who wear a bunch of cats who'll do anything to get out of this pet shop, even dress up like other animals. Shh. So if you see us in your neighborhood and you find out we're not what you think we are, you're the best bunny ever. Purr? You're not a bunny. You're a cat. Don't tell, okay? Don't worry. It'll be our secret.
The Pretenders from Fisher-Price. Squeeze them and they really purr.
Wampa!
Hot Wampa Cave! Look's inside! It connects to Hot Iron Cannon.
Introducing.
Drink responsibly. Be 21.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
The voice of my Batman, Kevin Conroy, taken from us far too soon. Today is the 35th anniversary of Batman, the original 1989 film, which came out on this day. in theaters across the U.S. was a huge sensation. Batmania swept the country, and it's right about that time the 66 Batman show came back on the air in syndication, because why not? It's, we're riding the wave of this bat craze. And Chance Bartel has pointed out, too, yes, this is the 35th anniversary, June 23rd, 1989. And I think that's when I really started to get into comic books. My first comics were actually Paul Kupperberg's Superpowers, drawn by Jack Kirby, did the art for those.
Yeah, I remember him, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what kind of kickstarted my love. That was my very first comic. Yeah. And then I also got the Mask Mobile Armored Strike Command series that was out from DC Comics. And that, from then on, I was hooked with, and I was always a DC kid. And if you're a DC kid, maybe one of these comic book movies that are out that you think are commonplace now, that we're blown away, that we're seeing movie after movie after movie, maybe this is kind of creating in you a desire to go get comic books. Let me tell you about Bugs Comics and Games, our official comic book sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. If you are looking to get into comic books and you're just overwhelmed, you don't know, I said, there's this Flash movie out with this guy, but there's a Flash TV series with this other guy. Which one's the real? Go talk to Larry at Bugs Comics and Games. He'll set you straight. He'll set you on the path. Find the Flash comic you want, whether it's Jay Garrick, if it's Wally West, my Flash, or Barry Allen, whatever it might be. Tell them what you're looking for. If you're a Batman fan, if you're a Superman fan, Spider-Man, Captain America, maybe you want the new Skybound Image comics from the Energon universe, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Larry Hama, we mentioned before, the new G.I. Joe comic book that's out, and it's amazingly well done. Joshua Williamson working on the Duke miniseries, and now the new Destro series just came out this past new comic book day. If you're willing to get into any of those, if you're looking to a jumping on point, or maybe you're a fan and your collection fell off and you want to get back into it, Larry's the guy to talk to. It's like having your own personal comic concierge. You can check him out at Bugs Comics and Games on Facebook, or you can follow him on Instagram, Bugs Comics and spelled out A-N-D, Games on Instagram. He puts comics up there for sale, so if you're listening, maybe you're outside the greater St. Louis area, like our friend Chance in the chats, and you're like, hey, I don't have a comic book store anymore, let Larry and Bugs Comics be your new local comic book store. Bugs Comics and Games, they've got anything you might want, and if they can't get it, he will order it for you, because he's had stuff before. I'm like, hey, I want those new Jose Luis Garcia Lopez variants that are going to be coming out next month. For his Superpowers line that he did on Green Lantern and Wonder Woman and Justice League comics. Larry special ordered to make sure I've got them. You can start a pull list, and you can join the Avengers Club. That way you start saving money every single week, so it's not torture to go in on New Comic Book Day and think, oh, I've got to spend all this money. You can start saving money while enjoying your hobby. Bugs Comics and Games. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Very proud to have them as the official comic book sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. Do you remember the name? You mentioned the little comic book shop, Paul, right around the corner. Do you remember the name of the comic book store you got your comics from?
Well, they didn't really have names. They were just candy stores, drug stores, okay. Stationery stores. One was Harry and Flo's candy store on the corner of Avenue B and Remsen Avenue. There was a place, a cigar store I called Philly Nanza, that was on Ralph Avenue in Brooklyn. We would just hit this string of places, so not everybody had the same distribution for some odd reason, or we'd have to hit 6 different places to pick everything up. But my go-to bookstore, there was a used bookstore in Brooklyn on Flatbush Avenue between Dipness and Dorchester, and it was called My Friend's Bookstore. And it was mostly, again, books, magazines, tons of paperbacks, just old and musty and, long and deep and narrow and with high ceilings and bookcases that went right to the top.
Wow.
And they just carried everything. And there was a showcase up front with comics, Some of those things went for $30-40 a pop. Holy cow. There were dime bins in the back. Not only did we go there for comics, but, that was our book supplier too. I found everything from, Edgar Rice Burroughs to Truman Capote, in that place, just because we would spend all day there. We'd spend all Saturday there.
Yeah.
I'd go with Paul Levitz and my friend Steve Guillory. And over the years, we've learned that people like, Howard Chaykin and J.M. DeMatteis and a whole bunch of other people were also, also shopping at my friend's bookstore. It was a great place.
Wow. Man, obviously it must have had an impression, because you can recall it was between this street and this street, and you knew exactly where it is still.
I wrote about it. I wrote about it in panel by panel. I remember Dottie and Ruby, the owners. So yeah.
And again, I know that Joey V, my executive producer, listed the Kickstarter link in the chat. So if those of you who are joining us in the chats, just scroll back up and you can click the Kickstarter and make sure that you are checking out Paul's latest book. I assume now, I know we mentioned earlier in the conversation, you've done these previous books called Direct Conversations, and it's always been a play on DC, because that was the publication that I remember getting those off my newsstand at Comics, Cards, and More in Overland, right off of Woodson Road.
Right, the Direct Currents.
Yeah, Direct Currents. And so it's a little play on that. It's always Direct Conversations. You've got a little DC play on each one of these titles of these previous books.
Right. Yeah, it was Direct Comments, which was which were the transcripts of those circa 1990 interviews. I had about 24 that I found on an old 3.5-inch floppy disk. And I was able to salvage them and
wow.
With some judicious editing and a lot of footnotes. I put those out, and then I started doing new interviews with Direct Conversations, where I talked to the people I got into the business with in the mid '70s, from Paul Levitz to, speaking of the Batman movie, Michael Uslan, who was also a young staffer at DC in the early '70s. So and went on to, he and his partner acquired the rights to Batman and Swamp Thing, and has been the producer of all the Batman movies, executive producer of all the Batman movies since. But yeah, so I talked to all these people: Steve Mitchell, Joe Staten, and then the follow-up to that, I did a book called Direct Creativity, which is talking to writers and artists just about their inspiration, the people and things that inspired them in their careers.
And if people want to get one of those, I know the Kickstarters obviously have expired for those, but your website, is there a good place to go if they want to get some of those copies of those, or is it mostly you just send them online? Or
yeah, well, they're all available on Amazon,
okay,
or available through my website, paulkupperberg.net. I can sign them and send them.
Perfect.
So.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I got before I met you at Terrificon. I was following you on Twitter, and you had the Doom Patrol special that you had. And you said, "Hey, I've got a bunch of these I found. I'll sign these and send them out to you." I was like, sold. And I still have that in my collection that you mailed to me. It was really cool. And then obviously we got to know each other from Terrificon, which again, right. if you're listening right now, Mitch doesn't pay me at all. This is just my personal opinion. If you want to go to a convention, what's that?
He said, Mitch doesn't pay anybody. What are you talking about?
Well, there is that, yes, but he puts on a good show. I got to say, if you're at all interested right now in meeting people like Paul and DG Chichester, and he's going to have Walt and Louise Simonson this year. Jim Lee's going to be there for crying out loud. It's August 16th through the 18th. Which one?
Chaykin will be back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Howard Chaykin will be back too. If talk about curmudgeonly, he's one of my favorite curmudgeons as well.
I sit at his feet to learn to be curmudgeon.
So that's August 16th through the 18th. If you're looking for a con to go to, it's in Uncasville, Connecticut. But boy, it's fantastic. For my money, one of the best comic cons in the country. So if
good show.
Just put that out there.
Mitch loves the comic book people, and he makes sure that that there's plenty of us there in addition to all the media stuff.
Right, yeah. It's mostly Larry Kenny's always there, which he's the Lion-O from the Thundercats. I always enjoy meeting him. Are you going to be at the one this year? Come to think of it?
Yeah, sure.
Good, okay. But that's how I started meeting you, and we started talking, and you were very gracious, and now we're Facebook friends, and I get to pester you to come on my show all the time. But I'm assuming, because we talked very early in the show, you've got all these ideas simmering in your brain. Is there another DC title coming from you soon?
It might not be DC.
Okay.
But I do have an idea for, one solid idea for, a direction to take. I want to talk to almost everybody I've talked to were pretty much mainstream comic book people. I want to talk to the people who were, made careers in publishing their own stuff. The Distant Soil and ElfQuest and that kind of stuff. Mike Friedrich, who was self-publishing in the 1970s. I'd like to talk to some of those people and see what their experiences have been like. It's funny. Again, we've joked about me being a curmudgeon. We know that's not true. But it's really been a lot of fun, doing these books, just talking to these people. As everybody, the older we get with families and distance and work, people just don't get together as much as we'd like to.
Yeah.
So this has been a great opportunity to just reconnect with people or connect for the first time, with people. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the books, I know you'll, for those of you who are listening who might be attending TerrificCon, you've usually got some of those with you at the convention too, if people want to grab a set of them from you there. So Paul will sign them for you. I'm assuming you'll sign them for people who buy them, and they can pick them up right there at the convention.
Nice to be sure. Yes, of course.
I can't
If
believe this.
they bring me food.
Yeah. Well, speaking, I didn't check the door during the commercial. See if we have food outside, waiting outside on the front stoop for us here. I need to go check.
By the way, I find that highly suspect. I would go, thank you very much, and
So you're saying people would want to poison me? Is that what you're getting at? I think.
I'm just reflecting, my own personal choice here.
I understand. Yeah, it's kind of iffy, but like I said, I'm assuming that was a text sent to the wrong person, leaving food at the doorstep. Chance, our friend in Atlanta, says gas stations had spinner racks with comic books in them. Yeah, that was we had a Kroger store. Kroger's across the Midwest here. I'm not sure if they got up into your region of the country there, Paul, but Kroger's a grocery store chain, and they had spinner racks of comic books, and they actually had the Superpowers figures I mentioned before with that glorious Jose Luis Garcia Lopez blister art in the packages, and that's where I got some of my first toys came from a Kroger store, as well as some of my first comics. I do want to ask you a couple more questions. Let me take this last commercial break. We come back again. If you're Shannon says, thank you, Paul, for joining us, and she appreciates you, and she also remembers the spinner racks. Thank you, Shannon.
Spinner racks, yeah.
Yeah, good times. So we're going to take our last commercial break here. We're going to come right back, and we will continue our conversation with Paul Kupperberg and wrap it up here. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio on the Big 550 KTRS. Please stand by.
True, and you ride Lavender.
Lavender, the magical unicorn, Jazz and True Love, each sold separately.
Mom loves at the clouds. Now Lavender needs to be brushed. She's beautiful. Your turn to ride. 'Cause the only thing more fun than flying is flying a Lavender.
Lavender, the magical unicorn, and Star Fairies, each sold separately. From time.
It is a time when those who control the magic control destiny. When spectral light battle evil darkling lords.
Light of the magical light, visionary, with magical powers they fight, visionary.
They're gonna fall forth! Quick! Warn the Spectral Knight! It's the Darkly Lord! Capture Chariot to the rescue!
Visionary, light of the magical light.
Visionaries from Hasbro.
Protect space from all evil.
Hot Wing Rage 2, Gyro 2.
Figures with weapon birds sold separately.
Now with Steel will they face Evil Monster and Sky Shadow. Attack! Stronghold! Brandon! Power Wings! Oh! Stop! I've got Steelheart and Razor! No way! I'll still win! Never!
Steel will with Stronghold, Monstar with Sky Shadow, and other figures.
Holy cool lifting! Hi, this is Burt Ward, Robin the Boy Wonder from the TV series Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me. Golly gee willikers, it's fantastic!
And we're back for our final segment here on Geek to Me Radio. I'm your host, James Enstall. We'll make sure we tell you about our official premier sponsor, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. Longtime listeners of my show will know the website I'm about to say, discoverstcharles.com. St. Charles and the CVB there, Convention and Visitors Bureau, have been with me since I started the show. They're the first people I approached. I've been working with them with their festivals and things like that for, this season will be 25 years, which is impossible because I'm only 24, but somehow that math works out, and it's a great place to go down and visit. The people who run the Convention and Visitors Bureau are just the warmest, most fantastic people. If you've called to ask a question or talk to any of the staff, you know exactly what I mean. They do a great job there. And the cool thing about it is there's always something new going on. If there's a new restaurant you can try out. We just had tacos at Margo a couple weeks ago. Fantastic margaritas. We just were down there last night. We wanted to take my dog Grimlock for a walk, so we walked along the cobblestone streets of St. Charles. Brand new bookstores just opened up called The Bookworm, and it was a gentleman named John, very nice man, talking to him about the John Gardner, James Bond novels. It's a used bookstore, so if you're looking to go back and get some old books, check him out. They had kids' books, mystery books, thriller books, romance books, more books than Bubba Gump had shrimp. And it's a really cool little store. He's looking at doing some stuff coming up as he gets used to being on Main Street in St. Charles. But it's a fantastic place to visit, whether you're looking for a new restaurant, a new shop, if you're just wanting to go out and take your dog for a walk, if you want to go bike ride the Katy Trail, play Frisbee golf in Frontier Park, or just want to go out for an afternoon of fun or an evening and maybe have drinks at Quintessential, there's always something for everybody to be found in St. Charles. This is an entire area that's made up of small local businesses. And in this economy, it's always important that we support small local businesses like the bookstore, like the taco place, like Chuck and Lou, where you can go get your St. Louis, St. Charles paraphernalia and gear to wear. Great new store just opened up in the 800 block of South Main. It's a fantastic place, and they're going to be hosting, from what I understand, a brand new Comic-Con in 2025. So stay tuned to this channel for more information about that coming up. Maybe you want to learn more about the city. You can take their Hit the Bricks tour. You can go get a tour guide. They'll take you out along the cobblestone streets. They'll show you all the stuff. You might learn something as a longtime St. Charles resident you didn't know. And of course, if you're maybe on the East Coast, like our friend Paul here, and you want to check off a new item on your bucket list, maybe make St. Charles that item you check off. Travel to a new place. Check out all the history that this area is steeped in. It's a fantastic place, no matter where you're from, to come and visit. Whether you're across the bridge in Alton, Illinois, or you're on the West Coast like Susan Eisenberg, check it out. Start your trip at the website, discoverstcharles.com. As we always say, it's an historically good time. Chatting here for just a little while longer with Paul Kupperberg about his work. We were talking a little bit early before the break about your conversations you had with all these people, and I know you've talked to Roy Thomas, you mentioned Paul Levitz, all these people. Is there anything that you learned that, like, obviously you've known these people, you've worked with these people, you've been in the business with these people for quite a while. Did you learn any stories that kind of surprised you? Like, how did I not know that as you're having these conversations with your friends?
Actually, the best, the most surprising was with Paul Levitz, who I've known the longest. We met in middle school, which was then called junior high school. And, so I've known him since I'm 13, 14 years old. And, but we were talking, and he started talking about what went on when he started getting to the business side of things at DC as a kid. He was hired in 1973. He was 16 years old. He didn't have, back then, you need, if you were under 16, you needed working papers from the state labor board to work, and he didn't have that. He said, they were paying me this per diem, which probably wasn't even legal, but so he starts talking about all of that. And then he gets into what he's finding as he's getting into this stuff. And again, he's a kid, he doesn't know anything. And he's picking up the business from, Arthur Gutowitz, who has been there for, decades. And it's like, well, why are you doing it this way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. But that's the way it's always been done. It was that type of thing. And so all that kind of behind the scenes business stuff was like, we've never had that conversation. And again, I've known him for, for 50 whatever years.
Wow.
So yeah, it was interesting.
You know all these people too. Were there any conversations you were like, I'm a little nervous talking to so-and-so, or was there anything like that at all? Or is this just your,
I don't really think so. I mean, it's like I had been nervous about, I spoke to Mark Guggenheim, who is, he's not only written comics, but was a writer and producer on the whole DC.
CW superhero stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was a little like intimidated, but, I start talking to the guy. He goes, "Yeah, I loved your stuff growing up. I read your, oh, okay." I'm old enough that most of these people, I'm looking at this list here, and I think Houston's a few years older than me, but again, I've known him forever. Roy Thomas is older than me, but, one doesn't have to be nervous talking to Roy.
No, my goodness. He's a Missouri boy. So
yeah, he's just a nice guy. It's we're either, I've been doing this long enough that there are very few people that would intimidate me. I don't know if any of them are still alive anymore, the people who would intimidate me.
Wow.
I think Neil may have been the last one, Neil Adams. So
yeah, gosh, I was just thinking the other day because his birthday just was this month, and thinking about how we lost him and George Perez in the same year, just like, whoa, what a blow. Yeah. But great work. And again, it's one of those things where, when you've got a huge body of work like that, that's kind of a nice legacy to leave, as you have done with all the writing and the stuff. Like I said, you were basically my first comic, and you and Jack Kirby were my introduction to DC Comics. So I credit you guys for my love of DC.
Wow. I'm surprised it survived me, but thanks. No, I'm doing that false modesty thing. It's the superpowers, when I took the job, I knew it was a silly, it's a toy tie-in. But for me, it was like my one opportunity to write the Justice League of America. I knew I was never going to get on the JLA title, but I could just pretend this is a JLA story, a big, epic JLA story. And, I played it like one. I separated it off, and, the characters all go off and have their own small, team ups and all that stuff. So I deliberately did that. And frankly, that it was Kirby who drew it was just the icing on that cake.
Yeah, my gosh.
Amazing.
And again, if you're liking what we're hearing tonight, he's got those books that are out. Again, paulkupperberg.net. If you want to go check out his direct conversations and his other books that he's had with some of these other creators. The new Kickstarter is still live. I think it's got a little under, maybe 11 days exactly, or thereabouts, for the Kickstarter book, which he's got currently up. We have a link to that in the show notes. Panel by Panel, My Comic Book Life. I'm pulling up the Kickstarter now. Yeah, you've got 11 days left to go on that, so plenty of time if you're listening to that. Let's go ahead and see if we can't double his goal and get him up to $5,000 for his entirety of this publishing run, and hopefully we might even see some of you at Terrificon. If I know you're very active on social media, is Twitter the easiest way to find you and get a hold of you and interact with you, or are there other sites as well?
Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky. Those are the ones I mostly do. Yeah.
And it's just at Paul Kupperberg, all one word, right?
Yes.
Across them all? Okay. All right.
And also people can contact me at paulkupperberg.net.
Yeah, and go to the website and you can shoot an email there. This has been fantastic. I always enjoy talking to you. You know this. This is a great time for me, so I really appreciate you taking the time. It's a little later where you are, so thanks for being on a Sunday night, and I guess I'll see you in August.
You will indeed, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. Have a good rest of your night. Be well.
You too. Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
There he goes. Yeah, make sure you check out the Kickstarter. Again, if you're listening after the fact, scroll down the bottom of the page of our website in the show notes, and we'll have a link to his Kickstarter there. And if you're listening right now, currently, if you're in the chats on Facebook and YouTube, Joey dropped links to the Kickstarter in there as well. Just like the day job, Joey, that you've got. I know we just got a couple minutes left, and I know you saw a movie recently, and I wanted to give you a chance. What was this movie you saw, and you said you didn't care for it?
How dare you make me talk about movies that I don't love? There was this indie darling of a film called Janet Planet, and it's got everything I would love. 90s nostalgia, awkward little kid coming of age, Casey Jones from the Ninja Turtles movie, Elias Koteas, and it just squandered it. So I'm not recommending Janet Planet. It's got the ingredients there, but just like the way it forced me to watch a food in a microwave live for a minute, it just straight a shot of a microwave for a full minute. It's just a little too boring. for me to recommend Janet Planet.
Janet Planet. So that's coming out. It's out this weekend, or it's out currently?
Yeah, it's out currently. I also saw Bikeriders, which you talked about. So all the cool dudes, like you and me, we're putting on our leathers and we're going to skedaddle out of here and
we leave
with our lady on the back, and hopefully she doesn't fall off.
That's right. I've got my leather jacket with little metal pieces all over. It makes a lot of noise in the dryer, but that's okay. That's what people wear on bike rides, I understand.
I know you haven't talked about Bad Boys 4 at all. Have you recommended that to anyone at all?
I did. I thought it was a lot of fun. I had never seen, full confession, I think I'd seen the first Bad Boys movie, and I hadn't seen 2 or 3, but they recap everything that you need to know at the beginning of the 4th movie. Bad Boys.
They show the slap on the Oscars?
It's very funny because Martin Lawrence has a chance where he has to slap Will Smith several times in one scene. It's hysterical. Everyone in the theater about busted a gut. You couldn't even hear what Martin was saying to Will Smith from all the laughter in the theater that was ringing out. But it was that was a very funny moment. I don't know if they went back and filmed that and edited it in post Oscars slap, or if that was always planned in the script originally, depending on how long they'd been working on this. But it was fun. I'm glad it did as well as it did, and it should have been the same with Fall Guy. I think that should have done as good as Bad Boys did, or better. But yeah, hopefully, I know Inside Out 2 did gangbusters, so hopefully movies are coming back. People are starting to say, oh yeah, I remember what it's like to see movies in theaters. Hopefully we'll see more people doing that.
Yeah, I think Inside Out 2, last I saw, was about $700 million worldwide now.
Not bad.
And I haven't seen it yet, so, I mean, I don't know how it made that much. I haven't told people my opinion yet. How do people know to go see it?
Must be just it's one of those Pixar movies, and people want to get out and see a kids movie, because I think we've got Despicable Me 4, which I know you're very excited about, coming up next week.
Yeah, these dumb kids, and they love flashing colors. They don't care what's happening. I've just not been a Minions fan. I don't know if you remember back in the day, that first Pixar film, A Bug's Life, there was these little pill bugs or roly-polies, and they actually have the exact same mannerisms as the Minions, but they did it first. So I was always, very partial to A Bug's Life and Dave Foley and Kids in the Hall. And then when I saw the Minions come out, I was like, oh, they're just stealing the kind of bit that they did in Bug's Life. So I just never got on board with the Minions. And then the meme-ification that you see on Facebook with moms, all these moms on Facebook with their Minions memes. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, and we talked about that too. You're very bitter with most of your family shares those memes.
I blocked my own mother. She's sharing these Minions too darn much.
See, there's Joey V is merciless when it comes to Minion memes. Just remember that, folks. Well, thank you. I will make sure to not see Janet Planet then. Thank you for your review.
But we're very excited about A Quiet Place 3.
Yes.
Or I believe it's called...
a prequel, technically. A Quiet Place Day One. So it's a prequel, so we get to see all the stuff, and this is in New York. We get to see how it happened in a big city, kind of like Fear the Walking Dead was the spinoff.
Very fond of the second one, because it was one of the first movies I saw when COVID finally started to settle down and we got to go back in the theater. So when I finally got to go back and I saw Quiet Place 2 in IMAX, I was just blown away with the opening scene. So fond place in my heart for that little kid Krasinski. He's really come up in the world, and his little wife, Emily Blunt.
Doing pretty well. I know I preferred him with Pam, but what can you do? That's all right. Thank you. I appreciate your review, and we'll, as Joey's in studio with us and he sees movies now, we'll start having hopefully some more time at the end rather than just a few minutes, but we can start having the movies that I don't get to see that Joey can review for us, because he's far better at it than I am anyway.
Thanks, buddy.
So thanks for your time. Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you to all of you who listen. Thank you to all of the chats, and Shannon and Sarah and Chance and everybody. Thank you for your questions and for listening. And thank you for tuning in each week to Geek to Me Radio on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. We're still wanting to bump those numbers up even more on YouTube. So youtube.com/Geek to Me Radio. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Geek to Me Radio. Twitter and Instagram @Geek to Me Radio. And thank you to Bugs Comics and Games and the City of St. Charles for sponsoring the show. And until next week, my friends.
The way you look when you make Game of Thrones references, that's a show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Metropolis. Good night.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. The FBI announces a $10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for the recent South Fork and Salt wildfires near Ruidoso, New Mexico. 2 people are confirmed dead and about 29 others are not